vu, it's fully justified. I last made a new top 5 San Martin video in June this year, and here we are only 2 months later with another 5 new releases. They are nothing if not prolific in their output. And oddly enough, there's another sale on at AliExpress at the moment. So if you're keen on picking up one of these watches, now is not a bad time to do so. You saw the pop-up? This video is sponsored by the San Martin official store on AliExpress. I will therefore leave links to all 5 watches in the order that I show them in the description of the video. I'll do little mini reviews of each one with pros, but also with cons. And it's the usual mix of originals, lookalikes, and original lookalikes, if you see what I mean. And if you don't see what I mean, you soon will. Let's get on with it. And let's start with one of 2 quite similar watches on the list today, and a new version of what I think is San Martin's best original design. It's their SN0116 series, and they have just released 2 of what they're calling distressed versions. One is meant to look like a well-worn Pepsi dial, and the other a decidedly sun-bleached black dial. Both feature Fotina discoloration on the hands, the indices, the date wheel, and the minute track around the outer edge of the dial as well. Both are available during the sale for a very reasonable $279 US. They are meant to mimic the look of those famous tropical dial Rolexes from the 50s, 60s and 70s. If you're unfamiliar with these, they started out as regular Rolexes, but because of flaws in the paint that was used and the passage of time, some of them have taken on delicious chocolatey golden hues, as you can see here. They are highly sought after by collectors and will cost you a lot more than $279 US, let's put it that way. The SN0116 is a cracking watch. It has a slim and stylish skin diver style case with appropriately drilled lugs. The beads of rice bracelet used is also period correct. The on-the-fly adjustable clasp is not. It's a nicely wearable 39mm in diameter, thickness is only 12.5, which is pretty good considering the movement. Lug to lug of 46.5, lug width of 20, won't be a disappointment to anyone either. The beads of rice does taper down to 16 and back up to 18 at the clasp. As sized for me and my 7-inch wrist, it weighs 125 grams. Water resistance is 100 meters, crystal is vintage style boxed dome sapphire, and the movement is a Seiko NH34 GMT 4-hander. I stress again just how good San Martin watches are, just how well made they are, how perfectly they're finished, how nice they feel in hand. You really have to spend over twice this much before you start getting a product that's actually any better made. Moans and niggles about this one? Well, I've never been convinced that the hand proportions are quite right. I've always felt that the hour and minute hand could do with a bit more meat and the second hand a bit less meat. And forced or fake patina, no matter how nicely and consistently it is done, is not going to appeal to everyone. Don't worry though, if you like the watch but not the colour version, you're not short of options. I'll leave links to a few non-tropical ones as well. Moving on from an original design to a decidedly borrowed design, there is a lot of Tudor here, but Tudor haven't quite made a watch like this, not yet anyway. This one is the SN0128. It's a new release of their Black Bay lookalike, but with a soft pink dial. During the sale, you can get one of these for $217 and a few cents. Tudor released a pink dial Black Bay chronograph at Watches and Wonders this year, but as yet they haven't released a pink dialed 3-hander. Perhaps they will homage San Martin at some point. I've looked at this model a couple of times now with different dial and bezel combinations. It has the traditional Tudor slab-sided case, an unguarded crown and a coin-edged ceramic bezel. It also has an excellent Jubilee bracelet, a style that is only just beginning to filter through the Tudor range. And it's an interesting size. It's a 40-20, so 40mm in diameter, 20mm between the lugs, thickness of 12.5 and a lug tip to lug tip of 49, making it a little bit more substantial on wrist than the 016 we just looked at. The Jubilee is great though. It tapers from 20 down to 16 and it's the same clasp as before. In fact, it is the same clasp on 4 out of 5 of the watches today. Weight is 140 grams, double dome sapphire, 200 meters of water resistance this time, and it's a 3-hander, so it's an NH35. Now that does mean a ghost date position, but I'm not going to complain in a watch this nicely made costing less than 220 bucks. Now I did say the size was interesting because this one rather splits the difference between the 41mm Tudor Black Bay range and the 39mm Tudor Black Bay 58 range. So they're probably aiming for somewhere in the middle of the bell curve. I'm not sure the pink dial though will hit the middle of said bell curve. It is a bit of a muted shade of pink, much like the one Tudor has used, but perhaps if San Martin had wanted to add a bit more of themselves into the design, they could have chosen something a bit brighter. That's the first moan with this one then. I also note it has a printed logo rather than an applied logo. That's a bit of a 50-50 in San Martin's catalogue. Personally, I always prefer their applied logo. But if you like the case shape and you want a little bit of colour, this one is definitely an option for you. Talking of colour, remember I mentioned the concept of an original look-alike? Let me show you the next watch on the list at number 3. It's the SN0116. Now again, this is a San Martin original design that I've looked at before in other colours, but they have clearly been looking at the success of a certain British micro brand when they released this decidedly watermelon-looking colour version. Now, San Martin are not the only AliExpress brand to have made the same observation, but at least this one only borrows the colour scheme rather than the whole design. 195 and change gets you one of these during the sale, around 230 if you want a mesh bracelet instead of the excellent FKM Tropic. And if you're not into watermelon, don't worry, you're not short of other, admittedly, similarly vibrant colour options. This one is slightly larger at 40.5mm in diameter, 12.7mm thick, lug to lug of 47, again 20 between the lugs. Now, weight on the Tropic is 85 grams. It's a really nicely integrated piece of double domed sapphire, 200 meters of water resistance, and you're not going to believe the movement. Actually, you probably are. It's the Seiko NH35 again. And let me assure you, you're not going to be short of wrist presence with this one, especially if you opt for the mesh. The dark green Tropic that I have here is colour matched to the bezel rather than the brighter chapter ring, so it does kind of tone down the look overall just a little bit. Well, as far as you can tone down a watermelon coloured watch anyway. Cons with this one? Well, it's a watermelon coloured watch. And they've chosen to colour match the date complication and then print the date in black. It's really not easy to read as a consequence of both of those decisions. You can see that quite clearly here with the high wrist shot. If that is a factor for you, perhaps go for one of the other more legible colour versions instead. Next up at number 4, it's a bit of a bitsa. It's a new colour version of their SN0053. Now perhaps you can tell from the nomenclature this is an older model, but they've just launched 2 new versions, one with a sunray blue dial with silver hands and one with a sunray brown dial with gold hands. They are both priced the same though, that price being $225 during the current sale. Now I call it a bitsa because there's a lot of Tudor in here. It uses a very similar case to the SN0128 that was at number 2 on this list, but this time it features a fixed bezel rather than a dive style bezel. It's a really nice bezel by the way. Have a look at it under my super macro lens. The machining is superb and you've got a little high polished edge, a high polished transition, the majority of it is brushed, and then there's another tiny little lip where the box dome sapphire nestles. Because there's no dive bezel though, you do get a larger dial and a bigger handset, meaning this one is arguably easier to read than the 0128, plus you get a date complication at the 3. But you also get a set of broad arrow hands, normally more associated with Omega than with Tudor, hence my use of the term bitsa. 40mm in diameter, 12.5mm thick, 48 lug to lug, so it's not exactly the same case. 20mm between the lugs, 130 grams as sized for me, 100 meters of water resistance, box dome sapphire, and the ubiquitous Seiko in the back. Every one of these watches has a sterile case back by the way, this one requiring either a specialist Rolex/Tudor removal tool or one of those much cheaper soft rubber balls. I guess that helps keeps costs. I guess that helps keeps costs. Woo! I guess that helps keep costs. Helps keep costs. I guess that helps keeps costs. I can't do it. I can't do it. I guess that makes them cheaper to manufacture, but it also makes the watches feel a little bit generic, a little bit factory, if you know what I mean. Personally, I think that this style of fixed bezel watch looks chunky and purposeful on wrist, although it does always look like something is missing because something rather is missing. But not everybody likes dive watches, and this one certainly offers a lot of the practicality of a dive watch, but without the bezel and with a slightly bigger dial and handset instead of it. And finally, last but by no means least, it's the second SN0116 based watch on today's list. Again, the fruity theme continues here as well though. This particular version is advertised as being grapes purple with other options including avocado green and simply orange. There's also a rainbow coloured bezel version with a lime green second hand if you want to wear your pride on your wrist. The price on these is $230 regardless of colour version. I think that makes it the best value watch on today's list and frankly one of the best watches you can buy at its price point. Not only do we have a beautifully machined case, excellent bracelet with screw links on the fly adjustable clasp, but you also get an attractive dial with applied indices, applied logo and a colour matched date wheel. But this one also features a sapphire bezel insert. I don't think anyone is doing better specs than this or better build than this for less money than this. The dimensions are almost identical therefore to the Tropical GMT, 39, 12.3 because of a slightly slimmer piece of glass, 46.5, 20, 130, 100, double domed, and can we make it 5 out of 5? Yes we can, it's a Seiko NH35. Now, I have been sent a lot of San Martins over the years, which is why I can state with confidence that this 116 is their standout model, and with an ever-expanding range of colour versions in both 3 and 4 hand configurations, you're bound to find one that suits your personal taste, from the more conservative black versions to the less conservative, shall we say, purple grape versions like this one. But my concerns about hand proportions apply to this as with all of the other 116s. Perhaps even more so here because you have an arrowhead and a big counterbalance on the second hand. And the sterile caseback just screams China Direct. But at least it's comfortable, and at $230 this watch blows anything from Seiko, Citizen or Orient right out of the water, I promise you. So there you have it, another 5 new or updated San Martins for you to choose from to add to the plethora of models that were already in their ever-expanding catalogue. Perhaps there was nothing too radical here today, but some welcome new colour versions of some of their best models, including one of the most convincing and cohesive Fotina treatments that I've seen on anything so far. Happy shopping if you are going to pick up one of these or anything else from the current sale. I'm off to have a cup of tea and get ready for the next 5 new San Martins that surely are only a few months away. Well done for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you're a fan of the brand, and you clearly are, why not check out another couple of San Martin only videos. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you again in the next one.